Go ahead.
Great. Just give me one quick second.
Recording in progress.
After you.
Hey, hello, everyone. This is Planning Board for February 22nd, 2023. Peter is out this week, so I will be chairing tonight's meeting. Todd, can you do a roll call vote, please?
Absolutely.
Sorry, attendance.
For attendance, I will begin roll call vote. I will begin with Michael Gore
Present.
and then Mr. Barr,
Here.
Mr. Romer,
Here.
and Mr. Nayland,
Yep, here.
with Mr. Driscoll being absent.
Todd, unless there's something pertinent in the town planner report, I suggest we move that to the end of the meeting, unless there's something you'd like to discuss.
I have nothing that can't wait until the answer.
Okay. So the first item for discussion tonight is Century Mills Estate, a status review and update. And I know we've got a lot of residents on the line. So I want to kind of just get to the news first off. We will not be accepting the road this year. The time frame between getting as-built, reviewing them, understanding what the scope of work is too short. And there's a lot of concerns already with the state of the roads. The DPW has concerns that they haven't yet done kind of a thorough inspection of them, but have noticed some things just on a drive-through inspection of them. We're not sure what's going to happen in the as-built plans. So we know that there's work that needs to be done. All of that work needs to be done before we can make any road acceptance recommendations. So that's the bad news. Sorry about that. What I can tell you is that the board is committed to working with you this year to bring this to a resolution. So our next steps are going to be to figure out the scope of work left in the as-built plan, see what the DPW has to say, and then go from there. So I'm not going to take too many public comments on this. I understand that this is frustrating for the residents. It's not the position that I want us to be in. When I look back at this last year, we executed a joint check agreement over a year ago for the as-built plans. Nothing ever happened with that. So we're kind of in this position now where the developer is asking the board and the town to rush through the process of road acceptance. And I'm not comfortable doing that, and other people in the town are not comfortable doing that. So we are here representing all of the residents of Bolton, and that's where we stand for this year.
Mike, it's Vince LaRosa. You said you weren't going to take a lot. Can I ask a question?
You can ask a question, yes.
So I'll ask the same question I asked maybe right around this time last year, maybe two weeks later, this point last year. What can we do to ensure that we're not in the same spot as we were last year?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I mean, the thing about road acceptance, where we've said over and over again, is that we want the developer to do the work. Okay, the work is done much quicker if the developer can do it. If the town has to take on any of that work, it's a much slower process. So I'm not positive what the next steps are going to be, but I think the board is committed to getting this process done. It's been going on too long. So I think we'll have more updates for you in the coming weeks, but I just want to set the expectations for everyone in tonight's meeting. The only thing that I really want to convey is that we will not be accepting the road this year.
So Michael, it's John Ballas here. Just want to make a couple of comments myself.
Okay.
Obviously, I've been pretty outspoken about this, and we know that the developer has been delinquent and faulty in a lot of ways. But I feel 3 to 4 months of wasted time happened this year because of the town itself, and I could bring up every point about that when I requested to be on the planning board agenda, going all the way back to probably last November. It didn't get on until January. So there's been a lot of wasted time, a lot of miscommunication, and a lot of lack of urgency on the town's part over the last 2 months specifically. I've been asking for a timetable on what needs to be done for at least 6 weeks, and I've never gotten it. I got it right away last year, the year before that. So there's been really no urgency on the town side to try to help the residents of Century Mill get this through this year. And I feel that we're owed more than just a complete denial. I think we're still in the time frame where we were still driving towards closure last year. And to flat out say no now, I think is not appropriate. We've never really even given a timetable.
So I understand your frustration. Your first comment about that it's the town who's delayed. Okay, the town is not responsible for chasing after the developer to have him complete the things he needs to do for road acceptance. Okay, I understand the frustration of that, but it is up to the applicant, right, to do the things that needs to be done for road acceptance. All right, so as far as the timeline goes, it's not the board's responsibility to be chasing someone down and say, make sure you got everything ready for road acceptance. Okay, so again, I appreciate that this is very frustrating and that we basically lost another year here. Okay, what I'm committing is that we will bring this to a resolution. Okay.
May I ask that we get a timetable of what you're saying all needs to be done in the next couple
Yeah,
months?
I can't give that to you tonight because a lot's going to depend on what comes back in the as-built plans, as well as with the DPW funds.
Correct. Can we have ETAs for those, please?
The as-built plans were 3 to 4 weeks from a few weeks back. I don't believe they've received a check for them. So no, I don't have an ETA for that. The DPW, the board will work with the DPW to understand what they see as the current state of the road. So I can't give you specific timelines for them, but these are things that we'll work on. Okay. So again,
Mike, hold on for a second. John, it really is up to the developer to give us our as-builts. We can ask and ask and ask and ask and ask. And if a contractor, it's like someone working on your house, if they don't give you what you want, I mean, how can we chase it? You really can't. You can give deadlines, and then there's it's a very hard thing to follow up on.
I understand, Jim. If I could just comment, what I'm saying and why I said what I said about the town causing the delay. I understand how Andy Benenson works. I've been fighting with him for 7 years. He only works under a time constraint and when he believes that he has something he can gain from it. And what he can gain from this is getting road acceptance off his plate and doing certain things. And he only works when he gets closer to the time constraint. If we were able to have the meeting in November, like I requested, or December, we would have had the discussion about the joint check agreement. I would have been able to get him to commit to give the $10,000 that he did once we got on the agenda. And then we would have had the as-built back in December. The town refused to put us on the agenda for months. I was ignored. And so we got to the point where we're in this space where I know for a fact that Andy Benenson only works under the condition when things look like it's going to be a beneficial thing to him near a deadline. And we pushed it too far because the town wouldn't respond to my questions and my asks. And I totally fault the builder. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's all the town's fault, but I do give blame to the town for multiple things in this development and why we're in the state we're in. And so I understand and I totally agree with your points about the developer being majorly at fault, but I do not agree that the town is not liable in any sort. And specifically this year, and to flat out deny us this week, I think is completely unfair without any report, where the report last year was going to be done in 2 weeks and we're 2.5 weeks and we don't have a report. So I think everything was been dragged out this year. I think every action has been dragged out. I think there's been no urgency, no matter how many times I raised it. I never once had to reach out to Don Lowe in the past 5 years. I've done it dozens of times this year. I reached out to selectmen. I'm not getting responsiveness from the planning board and the town planner this year on any of the things we've been trying to work to get through. Bob Romer said it perfectly 4 weeks ago. We need to drive this like a plan. We need to drive this and nobody took that. 4 weeks ago, we agreed on the light. The light's acceptable by the board. The light's acceptable by our architects. Let's close the loop. Nobody took the action to even reach out to them in 3.5 weeks. Zero accountability right now. This year has been zero accountability on the town. And I totally agree with Andy Bennison's at fault here. I can't believe that all of you can just say there has been any urgency this year. You guys have been so helpful in past years to get us to.
So I'm gonna just ask you to stop there at this point, because, you know, to say that the board has had no urgency, this board has done many things over the years for this development. Okay.
I agree.
And
I said that.
At some point, right, it's going to be one thing after another. All right. So what I'm trying to convey to you is just to level set everyone's expectations. The roads are not being accepted this year. That's the end of it. I mean, like, there are many reasons for it, right? But I mean, it's just not going to happen. The timeline is not going to happen. So Todd, I would like to move on to the next agenda item at this point.
Very good.
Can we talk about the light first? That should be closed by now, correct?
The light has nothing to do with any of this.
It 100% has something to do with this.
The light has nothing to do with that.
So we're not going to close that. We didn't even talk to DPW to get it
We
approved.
will, yeah, no, we'll get the light approved. Like, that'll
It
happen.
can be installed in 1 month. Why don't we just talk about having the discussion? You guys approved it 4 weeks ago.
So again, the update here, right, is to update you about the road acceptance. If you want to talk about the light being installed, Todd, I do believe we did have, there is some, if we move the location of the light, it becomes acceptable to DPW.
Yeah, to the chair, if I may.
Sure.
So I did speak with Randy Heglin. I've been speaking to him about this light off and on for the better part of, coming up on about 2.5, 3 weeks now. We've been trying to find exactly what the spirit of the findings from the design review board were at the time of their approval of this specific light. There is one possible solution that Mr. Heglin brought up, is that if we move the installation location of this light outside of the public right of way, at that point, at that point, that light would then have to be, of course, powered by the residents there via an HOA or something else. However, since it's not in the town's right of way, it won't get in the way of that work. However, this topic here does require a bit of movement, and this is also a very within the grand scope of the entire installation of the subdivision. It's a very minor item in comparison to the importance of the roadway in terms of some of the concerns and issues that have been put into my office. So the light, it is important. However, there is a way through that in a way that shouldn't be all that. It shouldn't be all that distractive to the process. So that issue, as long as we can have the planning board, once we have a full powered planning board, make a motion to make a finding of whether or not this specific product is to be installed and at a specific location that ideally is out of the right of way, I'm sure we can move on to other items, but that's not something that we can, that I would advise taking on tonight.
Okay, thank you, Todd.
Yeah, sure.
Next item of business is Keys Farm, status review and update.
Yes, to the chair, if I may.
Yes.
I would like to provide updates regarding this particular item that have been provided to me by council. I'd like to make that make those notes and findings established and out there for the board's consumption. It'll take only a few moments.
Please do.
So thank you. So just to provide a quick state of affairs of where we are with this particular subdivision of Keys Farm. We've been reviewing the Keys Farm subdivision bond, all the documentation supporting that. We're presently holding $115,000 and $140 or so for the completion of that work, which was detailed in the January 12th memo from my professor, Valerie Ortweez. This is, of course, a surety bond that's issued by Hanover Insurance Company, based upon a performance agreement that was signed by both parties. That $115,000 change that we're holding is recommended for the board's consulting engineer, Niche Engineering. That performance agreement requires that the developer perform the work and bring it to completion in a continuous and expeditious manner. That's an important key. And complete that work by February 28th, 2023. That's all but, 6 days from now. As of tonight, the developer did not notify the board as to whether or not the work will be completed as scheduled, and also did not request an extension of the completion date at least 60 days before the completion date arises. So we would have need to hear from them by December 30th of last year, which is required by the performance agreement that both parties executed together. So also as of tonight, the developer did not send any written statement that the work has been completed by registered mail to the town clerk or the board or to myself, which is required under that performance agreement. As of today, the status of work remains unchanged from the status described in the memorandum of the town planner, my predecessor, dated January 12th, 2022, the last time the board released a portion of that bond. The developer and its counsel have not responded to the request for status updates regarding the work from our counsel to theirs. And as of tonight, the 53G account, the peer review account for the board's consulting engineer is presently negative in the amount of almost $1,300, $1,293. And the developer has declined repeated requests to replenish this account, although that is required under the approvals for the subdivision. That's one of the conditions placed upon it. Last week, the town received the cancellation notice of the bond from Hanover Insurance, which would cancel the bond effective March 21. That notice gives reason for cancellation simply listed, quote, as requested, end quote. The developer did not notify the town of this cancellation at least 60 days in advance as required, and did not deliver an original renewal or replacement bond as required by the performance agreement. Based on all of this, the town council has prepared a vote to declare the developer in default of the performance agreement and enforce said bond. The vote of the board would be as follows. First, vote to make the findings of fact on the proposed vote to enforce. Simple. The second, vote to declare the developer in default of the performance agreement based upon the proposed vote to enforce. Third, voting to authorize the town planner, my office, on behalf of the board, to send written notice of this declaration of default to the developer. And lastly, voting that in the event that the developer does not cure or correct that default within 5 business days of the written notice of default, authorize the planner's office to send a written notice on behalf of the board of the developer's default and failure to cure, that's important, to Hanover Insurance, and to make a demand upon the bond to enable the town to complete the work that was approved and offset. I know that was quite a lot, and I apologize for that. But if anyone, that's what I would like to submit that. Thank you.
Thank you. So members of the board, we are discussing whether or not to find Keys Fault in default of its surety bond tonight. So if anyone has questions or comments on the board. As Todd mentioned, several reasons for us finding them in default, as he went through. Any discussion? If not, then I will make a motion to find Keys Farm in default of their surety bond.
I'll second that.
I'll begin a roll call vote upon that second. I'll begin with Mr. Gordon.
Mr. Chair, if I could, just a friendly amendment that the vote is based upon the form of vote provided to the board tonight, in which the board makes the findings that were outlined by the town planner, and the other votes that are outlined in that form of vote.
You need me to amend my motion?
You could also just say so moved.
So moved.
Very good. Shall I begin roll call vote? I'll begin with Mr. Gore,
Aye.
Mr. Barr,
Aye.
Mr. Romer,
Aye.
and Mr. Nayland.
Aye.
Very good. With 4 out of 5, motion carries. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd.
Anytime.
To the residents of Keys Farm, I'm not going to have a lot of discussion around this because there's a lot of things that are not known at this point. But what I will say is we don't want to have open discussion for anything to put the town in a, in a bad spot legally. So we are finding the applicant in default and are going to move towards progress on completing the work there.
Michael, this is Jason Hutchins from 75 Monterey. Can I just ask a question of Todd? You rattled off a lot of information very quickly, which I gathered as quickly as I could, but could you just make this video public sooner rather than later so we could try to digest that slew of information? It was very helpful, very informative. I wouldn't be able to take notes nearly that quickly.
That's perfectly fair, Jason. Again, I wanted to make sure that I didn't rattle it off too quickly, but also not take all night either.
No,
So
it was good, but it would. I know my wife is out of town. She'd like to review it, and just I thought it was very informative. But yeah, if you could just get this recording published sooner rather than later, just because it is.
Gladly. Mr. Hutchins, if you would, feel free also, if you'd like to have it out quicker, feel free to send me an email and I will be sure to share a link with you that will contain a direct link to this video. Because I think it might take a little bit longer to hit the public the public airways. Okay.
Thanks.
You're welcome, sir.
Okay. Todd, I believe our next item of business is scenic road shade tree hearing for lots 5, 6 Meadow Road.
That's correct. And we do have Mr. Proctor.
Can I just ask one question? I'm sorry, it's not going to be specific to Keys Farm, but 4 or 6 weeks ago, we talked about you were looking to find Andy Benenson in default as well, but there's never a vote on that or findings. Can one of you comment on how that would affect our progress or non-progress if the town actually continued that discussion?
That may be a better question for Council Falk in terms of how that would impede or not impede progress forward. So I would like to direct that to Council Falk if he's available. I think that would make the most sense.
Sure. I was wrapping up. Could you please repeat the question?
The comment was just multiple weeks ago, we had this discussion about Mr. Benenson being in default as well, and that was being discussed and reviewed prior to deciding to try to move forward as much as we could without ruling him in default. So there's no ruling. So the question was, if the town if they went ahead and started having that discussion again, because he is past the dates of default, how would that help or hurt our road acceptance options?
I mean, I think what's in the way of road acceptance is the as-built plans, which we're waiting on our peer reviewer to review. So I don't know that it would make much of a difference in terms of speeding that up.
But not for this year, but if he's found in default, you have the as-built, there'll be findings of work that has to be done that he may or may not pay for. So if he's in default, how would that affect that?
I really couldn't speculate. It's something the board hasn't discussed beyond what they've discussed in open session.
Brian, I do think, and Todd, excuse me, but I know we got to keep this moving, guys, but I think John brings up an excellent point. I know, Robert, you weighed in on this a couple weeks ago. Unfortunately, we don't have minutes to review. We haven't seen minutes in a while, but this was an open discussion and there was no decision at that point. And we were under the impression the decision would be made. Now we really got surprised tonight with the news and understood that's the decision you're making. But this was an open discussion point that we really never closed the loop on. And I do think it's important moving forward if we can get some clarity on this part of the process as well, since it was something that was discussed and then that was the last we heard of it.
So I don't want to say too much on this. Again, what I'm committing to the residents of CME is that we're going to work with you to see the process finished. Okay. And the methods by which we do that, we're not sure of yet and how it'll go. So what we did at Keys Farm right now has no bearing on Century Mill Estates. I understand your question, but I'm reluctant to say anything else at this time.
Okay, so we'll stay tuned for more to come
Stay-
then. Thank you.
Stay tuned.
Okay, thanks.
So Todd,
Yes, sir.
scenic road shade tree hearing for lots
Yes.
5 to 6 Meadow Road. This is a continuation.
That's correct, sir. And we do have Mr. Ryan Proctor for the applicant.
Okay, and do we have our tree warden on the call?
I do not see him present at present. See if I can give him a ring right quick. Hang on.
I would like to have him present for this. And Todd, if you can't, lose Todd. Oh, yeah. Todd, if we can't get a hold of him, then that's fine. We can
You
just
think-
move forward.
Very good. Think we're okay? Excellent. All right. Thank you, Mark. Again, thank you for doing the road treatments. I appreciate that, sir. Yeah, bye-bye. Okay, apologies for that. I'm sorry, our tree warden also does work with DPW for road treatment work in preparation for the storm that we're taking on tonight. He
Yeah.
mentioned here that for this particular item, lots 5 and 6 are all set by him.
Okay, no concerns on them?
No concern, sir.
Okay, and we have someone representing the developer?
Yes, Mr. Ryan Proctor.
All right, good evening, everyone. Ryan Proctor from Dillis and Roy, representing the applicant Clayton DeCruz, the applicant and owner. Just to remind the board, because it's been a few months since we've been before you for this one, this was an after the fact filing. For lot 5 and 6 Meadow Road, there was some clearing and stone wall removal prior to issuance of a scenic road and shade tree permit. There were 2 trees that were removed and approximately 30 feet of stone wall to set up for construction of the lot. And an enforcement order was issued by the planning board by the previous planner in July 28th of 2022. So after the fact filing occurred in October of 2022, we first appeared before you on the 26th of October. And at that hearing, there were a few conditions relative to the enforcement order that the board had asked the applicant to take care of. And there were 4 conditions. There was pay the town a $500 fine to the town of Bolton, restore the stone wall to its previous location before the construction had begun. The applicant was required to plant 6 shade trees, which were to be specified by the tree warden within the Meadow Road right of way, and regrade the area within the Meadow Road right of way between the stone wall and the edge of Meadow Road. The applicant has since paid the fine and done the restoration work within the right of way. I do have some pictures that I had sent in a letter to your board on January 9th, a little over a month ago. I can share my screen if you'd like, Todd, so I can show you those
Feel free.
pictures.
Hang on one moment. Let me allow you to do that. Hang on. There you are, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I'm zoomed in on a letter here, so I apologize for the size of the pictures here. This is a portion of the stone wall that was restored. We had our survey crew go out there and stake the locations of the previous location of the wall. There was a 12-foot break there, so that'll be seen in this picture in the next one. This is one of those trees that the tree warden had requested in a location that I had met out with him on site and discussed. This is the existing break of the wall. Again, we had staked the corners of the former location of the wall so that the owner could put it back to the way it was and in the correct location. And these stakes here in the middle are the proposed center line of the proposed driveway. So we are utilizing that existing brick in the wall to the maximum extent possible. Shifting down, this is on the right side of the proposed driveway. There are 3 trees that you can see here. It was a combination of maples and oaks, one here, and one here. And then further right of the driveway was another oak that the tree warden had specified. And then this is just looking back at the stone wall. A majority of this picture was the restored stone wall. You can see remnants of the existing wall along the property line and further into the woods that way. And then this is the last tree left side of the driveway, right by the existing DEP file number sign. Excuse me. So that is the restoration. Oh, and again, the last item was to regrade within the right of way. So the applicant concurrently with planting the trees has reestablished that slope, blending into the hill as it did before construction started. So those are the restoration efforts by the applicant. I would like to just touch on 2 other things. As you are probably aware, there are some drainage concerns on Meadow Road. Not necessarily with this lot, but the one that's being built up the street. Additionally, with the 2 other lots that we are currently working on, which are lots 7 and 8 Meadow Road. So we are aware of those drainage concerns, and we are working on this lot to mitigate post-development runoff rates after the construction of the driveway would be completed. So I don't have anything to present on that tonight, but I just wanted to give you an update and let you know that we are working on that. And lastly, the owners have been corresponding with National Grid relative to the electric service. And there's been quite a bit of back and forth over the last few months. We were trying to get an answer from them on what they were going to require for utility poles so we can tie into the existing service on Meadow Road. I think that's all I have to say at this time. I'm happy to answer any questions on the stuff we're working on or anything relative to the conditions that you would be there.
Yeah, so I think for this hearing, we just want to focus on the trees.
Sure.
And that's fine. Thanks for sharing those pictures.
Absolutely.
So, you know, I have driven past that area, and I don't have any concerns. But the one thing, Todd, in the hearing, it says the removal of 1 public shade tree. Is it 2 or 1? You call out 2 trees in the thing. So I just want to make sure we have that.
I believe it was 2. I apologize.
Okay.
Yes, one was a 5. One was a 5-inch, and the other was a larger. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. No, so I don't have any other issues. If anyone on the board has questions or issues, go ahead. No, if anyone in the audience has questions or comments. Hearing none. Todd, I think our next step is to close this hearing.
That's correct. And then afterwards, either a vote to
Yep.
approve or deny. Yeah.
So I'll entertain a motion to close this hearing.
Seconded.
I will begin with a roll call vote. I'll begin with Mr. Gore,
Aye.
Mr. Barr,
Aye.
Mr. Romer,
Aye.
and Mr. Nayland.
Aye.
And with that, motion carries. Thank you.
And I will make a motion to approve the removal of 2 trees and combined 30-foot of stone wall along lots 5 to 6 Meadow Road.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I
Go for it.
apologize. The 30 feet of stone wall previously requested was part of the after the fact. We are actually only asking for 5 feet on each side of that existing break now, so 10 feet total. So
So-
much less than the 30 feet.
Yes. So Todd, this was a question. I mean, are we approving something after the fact or are we approving with the
Oh.
new?
The first onset was simply, it was almost like a punitive onset hearing.
Yeah.
Which is to ascertain exactly, of course, the amount of damages, then of course levy whatever fine the board then deemed appropriate, which they leveled at $500 and reconstruction of several portions of that stone wall. So aside from that, really what you're providing here is consent to what was proposed. That's effectively what you're seeking. So this is to provide consent from the board for what was presented to the board by the applicant, Mr. De La Cruz, at the Shade Tree and Scenic Road hearing. Does that make
Okay.
sense? Was I unclear?
Well,
Nick?
so are we approving 30 feet or 10 feet?
No. We're approving 10 feet because effectively they've reconstructed the other portions that they previously deconstructed.
Yep.
So the remaining quote damage to the stone wall would be that 10 feet. Is that correct, sir?
There's an existing 12-foot break in the wall, and
12 foot.
to access the site and construct the driveway with a shoulder, we were asking for 5 feet on each side of that existing break.
Okay, so that'd be a total of 22 feet in aggregate.
Correct, with 12 feet existing. So
Very good. Okay, so it would just be to approve, as he just described, an extra 5 feet on either side of that existing 12-foot break.
And are any additional trees coming down or is the tree work done? And are we approving the removal of the previous trees in this?
the tree work is done and they are replanted. The only thing that would, that I mentioned, that we are corresponding with National Grid relative to a pole, a utility pole to provide service to that lot. So that would be the only thing that would, if they require a pole in a certain location that would require a tree removal, that would
Yes.
might be, we have to come back or amend it.
That's probably a separate hearing
Yeah,
at that point.
That would be a separate hearing, yeah.
Okay, understood.
So Todd, if you can just tell me what we're approving tonight.
Sure.
Is it
So we're
two
going to be
trees?
exactly. We're going to be consenting to the removal of those two trees, as well as the removal of 5 foot of additional stone wall from that existing break, for a total in aggregate of 22 feet of break, with 12 feet of that being pre-existing. So we're only really talking about the removal of a total of 10 feet of stone wall, 5 from either side.
Okay, I would make a motion to approve the removal of 2 public shade trees and 5 foot on either side of the existing break on the stone wall at lots 5 to 6 Meadow Road.
Any seconds?
Second.
Very good. I'll begin a roll call vote. I'll begin with Michael Gore,
Aye.
Mr. Barr,
Aye.
Mr. Romer,
Aye.
and Mr. Nayland.
Aye.
Very good. With that, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you,
Anytime.
Ryan.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Take care.
Okay, next item is a special permit hearing for Pamela Johnson of House of Dogs LLC of 525 Wattaquatic Hill Road. Johnson, are you here?
I am. Thank you. I'm here.
Hi, go ahead.
Hi. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Great.
So, can you describe a little bit about what you're seeking tonight?
Yeah, I have an in-home dog boarding business, as we were saying over on Wattaquatic Hill Road. And I'm looking to be able to increase the number of dogs that we intake into our, whoops, did I lose you guys?
Nope,
you're
I
there.
see you.
Sorry about that.
Dog
I
going
lost
after you?
I lost you guys. Hold on, where'd you go?
No, we can still see you, so.
Can you? Okay, then I'm gonna move forward. I've lost all of you guys.
Okay, we can hear you though, so you can just go ahead and describe.
Okay, great. So I'm trying to obtain the special permit so that we can increase the amount of dogs that we can take into our home. And my hopes are to increase it where we can have a range of probably 8 to 10 dogs. What we found out over approximately the 3.5 years that we've been running House of Dogs, that our average has been close to about 8 to 10 dogs. So with this special permit, at least I would have the opportunity to, have in place with the town, the ability to have that 8 to 10 dogs on site basically on a daily basis. it changes, people go on vacation, they don't travel it, sometimes they travel, sometimes they don't. Sometimes we have 8 dogs, sometimes we have no dogs. So I'm just trying to get things, clarified with the town and get the permit we're supposed to have in order to make this happen.
Sure. So Todd, how many are they permitted for currently?
That's a question for our zoning enforcement officer, but I believe it's 6 at present under the home occupations.
And you're seeking up to 10, is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. I mean, if we're able to go a little bit higher, my biggest, probably my highest request would be 12, but no higher than that.
And kind of what determines that factor? Is it space available outside, inside?
It's both. We currently live in it's a 3-bedroom ranch with a full basement. We're on 1 1/3 acres of property. A third of that acre is completely fenced in. And within that 1/3 of an acre, we have created 2 additional play yards. So dogs are able to be separated according to size, according to energy level, according to how they're getting along with everybody else. It's most of the dogs we take in, I'd say 99% of them are friendly dogs. We don't have the ability to be able to separate dogs that may have behavioral problems. I direct those to somebody else.
Okay.
Pam,
Yes.
I have a West Highland White Terrier.
Yes.
So I understand. Has there been any complaints from the neighbors?
No, and as a matter of fact, I have my neighbor Sharon's online right now. My neighbor Sam's online. Nick and Judy, who are my other neighbors, look like they weren't able to make it, but all of them have sent in a letter of support. And I have 2 of my local clients on the line here as well.
Good.
Well prepared. Thank you. So I assume no concerns from the neighboring houses?
Nope, none
No?
whatsoever.
And you don't expect a lot more noise?
No,
Coming
and I'm a
from-
direct neighbor.
Okay.
I too am a direct neighbor, and Pam is really good about managing the dogs, and it's clean, it's quiet, and I fully support her business.
Okay. Any complaints from the animal control officer at your business?
No.
Okay.
Nope. Never had her.
Great. It's tough to, so again, Todd, what permit does this follow under? This is a kennel permit?
Yes, this follows under a special permit, a kennel permit effectively. So what I'll do is I'll draft up a draft decision depending whatever results are rendered today. And then I'll have that ready for, at this point, this would be for you, Michael, given that you're vice chair. We would need to make a separate motion to allow you to sign on behalf of the board, given that Pete is not present at current. Or if you would not like to do that, I could just simply, harangue all 4 of the voting members to come in to sign the decision and review. I mean, I'm not averse to either one, but you know me, I can be annoying when I need to be.
No, I mean, I can certainly, okay, so first, again, to the board, any questions or concerns, and do we want to have some discussion about, so Todd, do we give an allowed number of dogs? That's how this permit works, or is it a square footage?
We can't, that would be in terms of a condition. So you could say, just to give some breathing room, we could say up to 15 dogs or something like that. But really, once she has that kennel permit, it really kind of gives her a lot more lateral ability to move and or grow, really up to whatever the zoning enforcement officer would like to impose upon them in that sense.
I see. So she doesn't have a kennel permit today. Is that why?
No, she was operating under a home occupancy sort of provision. Okay. So this would just kind of lift a little bit off of her maximum cap and allow her to have a broader expansive use within that, given that it's also home occupied.
Yeah. Okay.
You guys, could I add something really quick?
Sure.
So I don't want you to think that I'm going to have 25 dogs at the house. Okay, that's not my goal at all.
No.
Okay,
That'd
I'm,
be madness.
you know, it would make me crazy. I'm just really, I mean, if I, you know, I'm trying to limit the amount of dogs I bring in. You know, I'm not getting any younger, you know, so it's, I don't want to bring in, you know, 20 dogs. If I could have, you know, me as a person and my partner, Amy, who helps me run the business, I mean, we're quite content with like 15 dogs, you know, I mean, it's,
I mean, I've got a miniature husky in my family, and oh my God, I couldn't even begin to have three, much less one.
yeah, there's days where I wonder what am I doing? You know, but
That shows that, maybe that's a sign you're on the right track. Who knows? I don't know.
yeah, I love what I do. We enjoy it. I'm glad that we're able to help people. But like I said, I'm not out to bring in 25 dogs.
No, it sounds like you don't want to go too crazy.
Right.
Everything is fine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm thankful that I have great neighbors that understand what's going on, but it's not fair to them either. Because it gets to a point where, you know, if you have 25 dogs, it's not easy to keep them quiet. You can't bring 25 dogs in through a 3-bedroom ranch with a basement. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah, I hear you.
To the chair, if I may.
Yes.
We could just simply impose that cap as at 12 or whatever deemed appropriate by the building inspector at the time. So if she's not averse to having that cap at 12, why don't we just simply grant that?
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think we should put a cap on it. Any other comments from the board? No?
Well, how many,
Sounds like a plan.
Pam, how many dogs do you have like at one point like when people go on vacation or anything else like that? What's your maximum? What do you need?
The maximum that we would be able to take would be 15. That's our max.
Okay.
That and if I could get 15, that would be best. I mean, only because the busiest times we have are school vacation weeks,
Yep.
February, April.
Yep.
And those are the busiest. We get a busy week in July around the 4th of July holiday. And then we might not even come close to those numbers, even with Labor Day, Christmas, Thanksgiving. You know, we're more in the area of,
I get it.
you know what I mean? So it's not only certain times of the year.
So can we 16 the max? What do you guys think?
So we'll go to 15. And then, you know, just be aware, like when you get that many, right, there's, you know, more concerns, more problems of, you know, potentially dogs escaping or, you know, again, like, so I think we can go to 15, and if if we hear complaints or animal control officer needs to get called in, then definitely we can reevaluate that. But
Absolutely.
I think for now, comfortable with limiting that to 15.
Okay. Yeah, and and really my goal is not even to get too close to that if I can help it.
Yep, understood.
To the chair, if I may.
So, Todd, if I may, the way that we're going to handle this is you will write up the special permit. We'll vote on it as we've discussed tonight, and Michael will sign it.
Exactly. That's what I was looking to address to the vice chair. I will draft up the decision as kind of as decided upon tonight, with the condition that it be capped presently at 15 dogs. If there's any other conditions, I'll happily include those. But this is a pretty straightforward special permit decision to write. So this should be able to be banged out relatively quickly.
Okay. Do we close the hearing, Todd?
Yes.
Okay. Can I have a motion to close, please? Someone needs to make a motion.
Bueller?
Guess I'll do it. Make a motion to approve the special permit for in-home.
I think we're closing here.
Make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
Very good. I'll begin with a roll call vote. I will begin with Mr. Gore.
Aye.
Mr. Barr.
Aye.
Mr. Romer.
Aye.
And Mr. Naylor.
Aye.
Very good. We do have to the chair, we have one more question to address, is whether or not the board would like to empower the vice chair to sign on behalf of the planning board, or would you like me to seek out all the signatures individually? It's your discretion, sir.
Let's empower me to sign this.
Okay, so I would need a separate motion to empower
All right,
the
make
vice
it-
chair to sign.
Make a motion for Mike Gore, the vice chair, to be able to sign the special permit
Second,
On the behalf of the remaining members.
on behalf of everybody.
second,
Very good. I'll begin roll call vote. I will begin with Mr. Gore,
Aye.
Mr. Barr,
aye,
Mr. Romer,
Aye.
and Mr. Nayland.
I,
Very good. Motion passes.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
Hang on, just one
Yeah.
quick second. We got one
Oh,
more.
So-
I'm not going anywhere.
Nope.
Not until you
Now-
dismiss me.
So Todd, you want us to make a motion to approve the permit?
Yes, make a motion to approve the permit with the sole condition that cap be implemented at 15 dogs on the premises at maximum.
so moved.
Seconded.
Very good. I'll begin a roll call vote. Begin with Mr. Gore,
Aye.
Mr. Barr,
aye,
Mr. Romer,
Aye.
and Mr. Nayland. Eric?
I think he's frozen.
Looks
It's
like he's
frozen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Aye,
Oh, the suspense is killing me.
aye, hello, aye,
Very
aye.
good.
Am I
Okay.
back?
You're back, yes.
You are back, sir. You're back. You were
Okay.
frozen in a very interesting pose for like 8 seconds.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. All right. So with that, motion carries, sir. Congratulations, Pam.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Good luck, Pam.
Thank
for
you.
your service.
You too. Take care.
I'll fill you in on next steps, probably Monday. Okay.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, man.
You're welcome.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Todd, next agenda item is continued backland lot special permit and common driveway permit for Christopher Slade of 62 South Bolton Road.
That's correct. Do we have anyone here on behalf of the applicant? I don't believe so, but I don't want to presume.
Okay, so this has been on our plate for several months at this point. Although I don't believe we've had any contact from the applicant. I do believe I've heard rumors of a health issue. So if we close the hearing tonight, we'll have to have a finding on it within 60 days, I think, Todd.
There has to be a decision within 60
Yeah.
days.
Which would mean that we would reject it since we've effectively gotten.
Yes, and of course, there would be a cool down period of 2 years
Yeah.
before he could reapply.
So, yeah, so
There's a little bit of nuance here. So there's two options, if you don't mind me advising.
Sure.
We could either close the hearing now, which as I've just described, we would have to make findings and have to vote. And likely that would be clearly in the negative. At that point, it would take the applicant to wait to 2 years before he could reapply for the same project. Alternatively, we could continue this item out later into the year. Not too far, but we could continue it, say, for a couple of months, maybe. Just enough time to let the applicant kind of get his real life issues in order. I'll be reaching out to him in that interim time. And then once he reaches out to me in communication, we can reschedule him for some time closer. That's
Yeah.
really the best of the.
And that's, if the board is okay with it, I'm amenable to moving this out until July. So we'll move this to our first, probably our only meeting in July. And at that point, if we still have heard nothing back, at that point, we can close it, but I'm willing to, give leeway here. I just don't want to see it coming up, once a month for the next few months. So
Agreed.
if
And to the
if anyone
chair,
else has concerns with that,
No,
let me know.
I do know about his health issues and I would definitely endorse that.
Okay, great.
To the best of my knowledge, there's only one, and it's not minor, outstanding issue, and that's the drainage plan.
that was the primary, that was the sticky wicket of the last meeting. And that I haven't received any real amelioration of that issue since. So it's been kind of in limbo.
Okay,
Um,
so why don't we vote to continue?
to the first July meeting.
Yeah. Someone want
To
to make
be-
a motion?
Okay, I'll make a motion that we continue backland lot special permit and common driveway for Christopher Slade at 62 South Bolton Road. On the property identified Bolton's assessor map 3C as parcels 18, 20.1 and 27.
Second.
Until first meeting in July.
I'm sorry, yes, until the first meeting in July.
Second.
Very good. I'll begin with a roll call vote. I'll begin with Mr. Gore,
Aye.
Mr. Nayland,
Aye.
Mr. Barr,
Aye.
and Mr. Romer.
Aye.
Very good. And with that, motion carries. Item is continued to the first July meeting.
Okay, so let's circle back around to the planner's report.
Sure.
I wasn't going to be able to focus too much on that earlier, Todd, so forgive me
Yeah.
for moving.
Oh, it's quite all right. I feel frankly fairly awful at reading, such a long, drawn out memo to everyone, expecting everyone to retain it. That's why I'll likely condense that and distill it into something that is a deliverable I can make sure to disseminate amongst people. In addition to that, I'll make sure that this very recording is made as easily accessible as possible. I anticipate that Mr. Hutchins will be, it's probably already in my inbox, waiting for that request for the link, and I'll make sure to provide that. On top of that, most of the issues I've been dealing with here have been really, I won't say they've been kind of relegated to these simple delinquent subdivision items, but they've taken up a pretty large cross section of my time, as well as the construction of working alongside Kristen Zena, the construction of a set of 4 minutes from earlier this year, which which are ready to be voted upon. However, they're still in draft form, so we can, of course, wait until the next meeting to do an entire set of minutes if you'd like. That's quite fine too. On top of that, I've been looking at some items that we can implement within, not for this meeting, of course, it's far too late for that, but for the next town meeting as well, is making sure that any draft revisions we have to the bylaw will be taking the form that's in resonance with both the Master Plan Steering Committee's final document when that comes out, as well as issues to matters of housing policy, which are in line with our housing production plan, which are deceptively simple edits to make. However, they're incredibly momentous and that carry a lot of weight and impact behind them. There are some items there that once our docket kind of lightens a little bit and we have a little bit more breathing room, I'd like to get into the weeds for some of those policy items, because they're deceptively important and equally deceptively simple, but also deceptively difficult to make sure we implement them properly. So it requires a scalpel less than a sledgehammer, and I want to see that approach taken in the future. I tend to be a little bit more careful in terms of policy revision than reckless, and I think you'll recognize that as we work together later on this year to see these changes reflected. Am I making any sense at all?
Yeah, I'd like to see us get selectively ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
And have a bit of a lessons learned, after action review, as the military would say. And I think the issue of the stone wall, $500 in this day and age for somebody putting a $1.3 million house together is not significant.
Yeah, it's a pittance. There, and I'm so sorry to interrupt, Bob, if I may. I did share there's a policy from Harvard that I'd like to see kind of echoed here, which takes every single foot of stone wall removed or destroyed or disassembled as a separate offense. The statute limits the amount that we can charge per offense at $500. However, the workaround that's been found is to make every single foot removed a separate offense and charge each one of those its own $500 fee levied. I'm sorry, Bob, please continue.
Yeah, and the next one is the ongoing discussion on lots 7 and 8 on Meadow Road about drainage. And I would be in favor of putting together a regulation that prohibits the drainage of private property onto public ways, and more specifically, and that's pretty standard already with respect to driveways, but more specifically, avoiding the precedent of actually building structures to mitigate drainage off private properties on the public taking, which has been proposed now twice on those lots. My feeling is that that opens the door as a precedent to building all sorts of things on particularly unbuildable lots, frankly, due to the slope adjacent to the road, and start people thinking about that. But if you look at what has gone on with Meadow Road over the last month or so, boy, if that doesn't underscore the need to avoid that, I think there isn't anything that could. So those are a couple. In dealing with Mark Case on trees, a better way to handle that. Something that's probably going to take a lot more thought, that's going to come on our plate very soon. Mark and I discussed it, and Todd, you're familiar with it. When National Grid comes along and starts servicing multiple individual lots, not using subdivision regulations, and now taking out a number of other trees in order to service those lots. And I would bet a significant piece of change that will be the proposal on Meadow Road. Another pole and a whole line of trees right down the east side of Meadow Road. And it's not going to be alone. And it begs the issue of how do we deal with multiple individual A&R lots adjacent to each other, which otherwise would come under subdivision regulations. Is there an intermediate solution to that? And how do we handle that? But those are 4 issues that I think bear a fair amount of thought. Not sure how they fall into regulations versus bylaws, but I think it'd be useful to get ahead of the curve on that kind of thing. And last but not least, the challenges that we faced with CME and Keys Farm of how do we handle developers that basically walk away from a development, which is what these 2 guys are doing, with the expectation that the town will finish it. How do we look at cost to complete? And I don't know what the state regulations say about that, but I'll tell you, in the commercial world, my world, you don't deal with a bond that is a fixed price bond. You deal with a bond that is aligned with the cost to complete. And there's a very clear procedure for developing that cost to complete in time. So that's another thing.
Well, I mean, we do hold a 1.5x bond on all those.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's not just cost. So that exists today. I mean, that wasn't what happened in these subdivisions.
No, but what I'm saying, Michael, is that if we find ourselves in a situation in which the bond will not cover what needs to be done, what do we do about that? And we're in that situation with Keys Farm. And I'm not suggesting that, and we can't do it ex post facto with CME, but inevitably there are going to be others that we may be faced with that. And we need to look at some sort of mechanism to handle it. But again, the state may limit us. I don't know.
Yeah, under Chapter 41, it's unlikely that we could have the latitude and the broad breadth of action as we would like. But there are some lower hanging fruit that we can have under Chapter 41, 81Q, Section 81Q. We can stipulate within our rules and regs. You don't even have to bring it to town meeting for this. We can simply stipulate under our subdivision control regulation that during the construction phase of any proposed subdivision, every single road within that subdivision must be maintained in terms of all maintenance, standard maintenance, but also for snow removal, etc., snow and ice removal. That must be removed to the same standard and held to the same standard that the town of Bolton does. And that's something that we can do here. Effectively, after a public hearing, we can do that in-house. Heck, we could do it for maybe not next meeting, but the meeting after that. We could do
It's
that.
definitely worth doing, but it
Yes.
it doesn't address the delinquent.
Oh, no,
It's
absolutely
It's
cannot
great that
fix
it's in
the
there,
problem.
but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's mostly just as a gesture to folks
Yeah.
that shows that we're cognizant of the issue and we're doing our level best to address it, at least in the going forward. That's the
Yeah.
best we can do for that fact right here, right now. Well, metaphor.
Do we have anything, are we doing anything at town meeting this year?
No, there are no. We are waiting for the master plan draft to be released and have some recommendations for that. It would be a little bit reckless to go ahead and propose some bylaw revisions with the master plan being so close to coming to fruition. We need to wait and have those findings, and then we can have a whole slew of proposed edits and revisions to the zoning code that are in spirit and in alignment with that master plan document.
Yeah, I mean, to Bob's point, I think the four things he brought up are great. I mean, it'd be great to have a running list someplace,
Oh, yeah.
Todd, that we can, when we have time, that we can look into and work on these things.
Agreed. And as soon as our docket kind of lessens a little bit, we'll have plenty of time for discussions of that nuance. So far, I've been trying to juggle my best and making sure that
Yeah.
everything is slotted effectively.
No, understood. It's been crazy these past
With
couple
mixed results,
meetings.
but we do okay.
But
Moving
Todd,
forward.
as I understand it, there is a budget request at this point to provide additional resources for you.
Yes, there is. I spoke with the relevant committee there, with the finance committee.
Advisory.
Advisory. That's
Advisory.
the one. I'm so sorry. I'm too tired. With advisory for the creation of a part-time administrative position. It was mentioned by Kristen Noel that the past two previous planners, the major item that caused one of the items that contributed to their departure was being completely overwhelmed with administrative items. And I've discussed this before. I'm not above doing administrative work. Gosh, no. But every hour that I spend, sending out mailings and doing accounts payable and receivable, that's time that takes me away from the zoning bylaw research and best practice application. It takes me away from other items that I think I'm a better contributor for. So as soon as I can get that person, it's going to make us a lot more productive as a department.
Is that in process now?
Yes, sir. I don't foresee any issue with that. However, the position must begin at July 1. So we're going to
Thank
likely
you.
start advertising. Right. Yeah. It's only 4.5 months. It's fine. But we're probably going to start advertising for that position maybe a month or so ahead of time. So I'm hoping late May, early June. And then if the stars align, then I actually might have someone in to kind of take some of the pressure off some of the administrative items that we've got to do.
Yeah, it's not a criticism.
No.
I understand, having been on both sides of this discussion with the master plan and so forth, that it's a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, it's
Well,
that's how I
mean,
started my career, is being an intern, just having, planning assistant and planning intern stuff to do. It builds chops, but it still takes away time from other more productive activities, I'd say.
And I mean, the fact that I don't even think we had warrant items last year, really. And we can't just say we do nothing until the master plan comes out, because we know that there are things that we could do that
Yeah,
are
well,
reliant on that.
Well, we
So,
had the accessory dwelling unit bylaw. We had that,
Yep.
which is not nothing, but it is
No.
minor. But yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
But if we can,
So-
it would be nice, as Michael suggested, to have a running list that we can kind of have in the back of our minds and, maybe make time on occasions to have that conversation and prioritize it.
Well,
It's
and especially because, I mean, we haven't had one in a while, but like we very well could, the town could have a meeting in the fall.
Mhm.
A lot of
Yes.
other towns I've noticed
Do.
it's more and more common for special town meetings in the fall to happen. And so if we just had articles that are kind of ready to go even before
yeah.
springtime.
There's a certain kind of poetry in giving the members of the planning board a punch list, but it's not lost on me. When I was in Barrie, we had 2 meetings fairly regularly. And I was on the planning board in Barrie too, early on. And we like to have we had some items that were pretty much, I won't say out of the can, but we tailored items from CMRPC, our regional planning association there.
Yeah.
And we took those, we tailored them to fit Barrie, and then we just put those up on the warrant there because they
Yeah.
follow best practice. And that's something that we can take inspiration from, because we've got MAPC here. They're a great resource. We should leverage that.
Yep.
I don't want to cut off any other discussion on this, but I know Bob, you are on vacation. So Todd, the draft minutes, you will have those for the next meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I have them ready. I have them ready already, but they're still
Well,
in draft form. But
Yeah, I mean, I'd like you to send those out to the board before the
Sure.
next meeting, just so we have a chance to review them.
I can
But
mail them out. I can mail them out Monday if you guys are in the mood to read.
Perfect. That's great.
Yeah, that'd be good.
I imagine Bob just wants to be in Costa Rica, reading some minutes and going over the exciting
Well, I
items.
must say, I am really impressed at the bandwidth of Wi-Fi and internet in the rainforests and the mountains of Costa Rica. It's
Yeah.
astounding.
I was half waiting for it to get a little jumbled and
No, it's
fuzzy, but
amazing.
no, it's been great.
You're a little pixelated, but you've been steady the whole time.
Yeah.
It's great.
Hats off to Costa Rica for sure.
Okay, if there's no other discussion or comments, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Very good. I'll begin a roll call vote. I will begin with Mr. Gore,
Aye.
Mr. Barr,
Aye.
Mr. Romer,
Aye.
and Mr. Nayland.
Aye.
And with that, my good man, we are good to go.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Great. Thanks.
On the roads if you're out.